I'm Susie Newbigging. I'm a ceramic artist from London, and I'd like to share a little bit about the pattern and mark making techniques that I use in my ceramics. I mostly work with porcelain when I'm making ceramics, and I hand build as well as throwing on the wheel. I think porcelain provides a good canvas for the patterns that I want to apply to the surface of the ceramics later. And I mostly work in blue and white, leaving the outside unglazed as this provides texture. I grew up in Asia and am really influenced by the colours and patterns of Asia, including indigo textiles. I'm fascinated by the idea of the indigo vat and the magic of it turning blue. Indigo isn't just a colour, it has so much history and culture attached to it. And as with fabric, when you experiment with indigo on paper, the marks that it makes are unpredictable and you can create some really interesting patterns. Similar to indigo textile patterns, I experiment on paper using a resist, similar to wax for batik, for example. Here I'm using a masking fluid that you can find in most art shops, and applying it to watercolour paper. I then, once it's dry, apply ink on top, and you can see that the pattern underneath starts to reveal itself. Once the ink itself is dry, you can start to remove the masking fluid. It's a little bit rubbery, but you can just use the tip of your finger to rub it away, and underneath you'll get the whiteness of the paper coming through. Here I'm going to use a technique that I use for my indigo splash plates. It reminds me of indigo in an indigo vat as it swirls around in the water. And when I'm creating my patterns, I like the randomness of it. So I move the paper around to create that random pattern. And then I use implements that I find around the house. For example, in this case, I'm going to use a cotton bud just to add a little bit of extra pattern and texture. And by putting some more water on, you get an extra layer of fluidity into the pattern. I like to use different brushes to create patterns, so you can either use paint brushes, or in this case it was a shaving brush, and depending how much ink you have on it, that you'll create a different pattern and texture. It also depends how quickly you use the brush and how much pressure you're applying onto the paper itself as well. When I finished experimenting with ink on paper, then I create 3D maquettes to see what the patterns look like on a curved surface. I then start quite a rigorous process of testing on clay to see which patterns work best for my ceramics. And once I've found the patterns that I like, then I will start to develop those patterns into a wider collection.